In Canada, criminals are allowed to rob your house. You get in trouble for defending your house, and you can't do anything about homeless people setting up camps on your property. In Canada, we murder disabled babies after they're born and all babies before they're born. In Canada, the state feeds us lies and false narratives to control us with fear. In Canada, reality is upside down and broken. That's why we need the grace of God and some serious multi-generational kingdom work in Canada. It's September 5th. I'm Andrew DiBartolo. That's Matt Hallick. This is Liberty Dispatch.
Hey there, friends. Welcome back to Liberty Dispatch. We are so thankful that you have joined us again on the program. This right here, Liberty Dispatch, is your source for Canadian conservative news and analysis from an unapologetically Christian perspective. We're bringing you the hot takes on culture, news, theology from a conservative Christian perspective that you're not going to get anywhere else in Canada. So be sure to, if you like what we do, support what we do by subscribing to our YouTube channel. Help us grow it. Hit the notification bell. Stay up to date. We would appreciate it. But most of all, if you go over to our Substack, ldcanada.substack.com, check out everything we've got going on there, including special extended interviews like the one, Andrew, that you did with ARPA Canada's Mike Shuden, the executive director over there. He's a good brother. They're doing good stuff. They got canceled and debanked, and it turns out if you're a Canadian Christian, you're too dangerous to do any business with. We've experienced the same sort of underhanded attacks as well. So we appreciate the work that they're doing. The conversation was a great one. We also just recently had on Russell Hunter of Abolitionists Rising, and that got some really good views as well. And if you want to hear spicy takes on how to abolish abortion in Canada and across the globe, something that we desperately need to do, then you're going to want to tune into that one. And you can get full extended interviews from all our guests, or from most of our guests, I should say, behind the paywall by becoming a paid subscriber over at ldcanada.substack.com. I have a wonderful conversation coming up this weekend with Lennox Kalifungwa. I love saying his name because it's fun to say. He's a good brother, and we talk just about culture and Christianity and all things Christian nationalism. So you're not going to want to miss that one. It is definitely going to be an exciting episode. It was a wonderful discussion. So, Andrew, it's great to have you back on the program. It's good to be with you, and I hope you're doing well. I don't know how it is in Ontario, but it's sure starting to feel like the last days of summer and coming into fall here in Manitoba.
Yeah, school year has started. Teaching the grade 7-8 class this year has been good. Doing systematic theology with the high schoolers, also a lot of fun. I overwhelmed them with a quiz with a bunch of big $25 words that they didn't know about, just to scare them and then reassure them that by the end of the year, they'll be able to get perfect on that quiz. So it's a good start to the week. A couple kind of housekeeping things for people. Just remind everyone, September 18th to 21st, or 18th to 22nd, is going to be the Maple Abolition Conference happening in Mississauga at the Mill Christian Fellowship. So if you're interested in finding out more, registration is free. Go to mapleabolition.ca. You can get more information about that. I plan on being there for some of it. It's going to be a good time. Russell Hunter will be there, John Speed, Laura Clausen, Matt Truella will be there. It's going to be a good time. The other thing we wanted to mention is the Let Kids Be rally happening on Saturday, September 27th. This is the following weekend outside of Queen's Park in Toronto. If you go to letkidsbe.ca, you have the itinerary, the schedule, what's going on, and this will be hosted by ARPA Canada. Again, letkidsbe.ca. So these are two back-to-back things happening in the GTA in September. They're free to attend. Check out those websites for more information.
Kicking off the academic year with a bang, Andrew. I love it.
With the bang. There's a lot of things we're going to be talking about today in our episode that show that there are many, many flaws in Canada, and it's no surprise to anyone that our financial system here is seriously flawed, shaped by a morally decadent society. Central banks repress interest rates and print money. Politicians spend recklessly, and big firms promote questionable ESG agendas. However, your investments don't have to suffer. Rocklinc helps Canadians like you invest wisely for the future. Contact them easily at info@rocklinc.com. That's info@rocklinc, ROCKLINC.com, info@rocklinc.com. Reach out to them so that you can better handle your wealth and your investments. So, Matt, recently we covered a story regarding a man who was charged with assault for defending his home against a criminal. The criminal was also charged with assault, but the man for defending his home and his livelihood was charged with assault. We covered the story. Now, the solution would be to protect the rights of citizens by allowing them to defend their homes with all the means necessary to them. Because you don't know, right? If someone comes in your home, you don't know what they're going to do. You don't know what could happen. It doesn't matter what their intentions are before they enter your home. Once they're in your home, it makes sense to tell citizens, defend your home and your person and your family however you need to. In the same way they tell police officers that when you're dealing with someone who's threatening your life, you don't just, they'll tell officers, empty the magazine, right? Because you need to make sure that the threat is neutralized. However, in Canada, we have police chiefs such as this gargoyle proposing a slightly different approach for what Canadians need to do when their home is being invaded and when a criminal is entering into their secure residence. Watch this just insane video.
Premier can make his own statement and his own mind up about that. What I would say is, as our police service, we'll follow the laws as they're written. If the laws change, we'll change with the laws. But as it stands, we know the best defense for most people is to comply. As you've just heard, a number of safety recommendations will allow for those that are victimizing members in the community to leave and not harm anyone. It sometimes can fall on deaf ears when members feel like they have to take matters into their own hands. And the only thing I'd say is, if we are going to rely on our community members to take matters into their own hands to solve this problem, we have all failed our community. I've been down at Queen's Park. I've provided comments on bail reform. So have many of my colleagues across the GTA. And here we are again talking about it. And it seems like in some cases, right, we have not moved the needle collectively, because this is not just a police issue. Unfortunately, when it becomes our issue, it's too late. So we need to do something about this issue around bail and about keeping those people off the streets that shouldn't be on the streets.
Yikes.
Yeah, I mean, the best defense is to let them do what they want and hope that they're just going to take some things and leave and not, kill you. Yeah, not kill you in the process.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's not like, for example, in Toronto, right, which is close to York Region, where that police chief, what was his name? Jim McDweeb? Was that his name? Jim McDweeby?
Maybe. Do you want me to...
No, it was McSween. It was McSween, but I'm going to call him McDweeb because that's better. So, on Officer McDweebster said that just let them go. But it's not like in Toronto, for example, you've had this monstrous escalation in gun crime and murder and people seemingly killing each other for no good random reason. So, I mean, it's not the case at all that someone who's willing to break in your home and steal your things. I mean, they're principled. They're not going to hurt you or kill you. They're just going to take your stuff, right?
Yeah, they're reasonable people. They'll be like, well, I was going to potentially, violently assault these people and steal their property, but they didn't really come at me, so I think I'll just
family. They're such a cute family. I'll leave them be.
But Andrew, it's funny though. I mean, this isn't funny. That's horrible advice. That's just disgraceful. But that's not we played just a year ago, seemingly months ago. Montreal police, I believe it was, Andrew, that was talking about how you should leave your car keys by the front door, so then when inevitably the robbers come to steal your stuff, that they can just take them and go, and then they're not going to have to assault anybody, right? Like this is how bad it's got in Canada, that the theft, the violent crime, it's so bad, and our cops are so outnumbered and so understaffed and just beleaguered by everything, that I guess the new strategy is just throw your hands up and just let it happen. And because Canada doesn't have biblical, thoughtful castle laws, or even just the definition of self-defense and the criteria that are I think it's like a list of 9 long criteria that have been historically, people have been prosecuted for defending themselves or dragged through years and years and years of lengthy and expensive trials in the defense of their person and property. The Canadians don't really have the ability to defend themselves as they need. And I just have to comment, Andrew, that's such a stupid comment from McDweeby there, from the officer, that if people have to defend themselves, then we've already lost the plot. And it's like, but there's every time, unless if you live in a gigantic police state, but even then, the normal civilians always outweigh the amount of cops in a society by hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people. But if you invest into the citizen a sense of civic virtue and common defense of themselves, and if you give them and you empower them to lawfully subdue crime and protect their persons and property, it turns out that human beings, as created in the image of God to do the Dominion mandate, we are self-interested and motivated by that. So it turns out that you can actually create safer, more law-abiding societies by having human beings with the same tools that criminals use, using them for good ends. And the fact
that's the failure, though. That the failure is that the state wants weak, dependent children. And so that officer is right, because in his mind, if we have strong, independent, responsible citizens, we failed. Because we need our soft, weak, pacified, dependent citizens. And so that simple comment that citizens that feel empowered and responsible to defend themselves because they're strong and capable enough, that officer said, if we have those kinds of citizens, we have failed. So then success is 1984. That is success, according to that police chief.
And you see that, yes, in his plausibility structure, the only plausible way to defend people is to increase the size and capacity of the police state force, right?
Mhm.
That's it. Like because I'm pretty sure he's responding to a question about potentially invoking castle laws, or at least kind of preemptively on a provincial level, policing in a way that would give people that ability to defend themselves, because there is some leeway there for the provinces to do that sort of thing. But he's just flat out said, no, we're not going to do that. That's not going to be a thing. We're going to just play it straight down the middle, and you got to change the laws. And I think that's fair. But the problem is there's a serious problem, and the solution to that problem is not lay down and play dead. And,
Right.
when he comments on it, he says, well, unfortunately, it tends to fall on deaf ears. Yeah, no kidding. I mean, it's against human nature to allow other people to violate your person and property, or the person and property of people that you love. It's against human nature. Yeah. So it's just an absurd advice. But again, it's not the first time we've heard this. And it's not the first jurisdiction in Canada that we've heard this from police officers.
So that's his advice, right? So responsible, independent citizens lay down and die. But meanwhile, in Canada, homeless people can set up camps on property that is not their own, and they can be protected by the same charter that is useless to protect citizens defending their own home. I mean, that the absolute irony and wickedness of that is astounding. So this is from the Chatham Daily News. Quote, the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, along with the certainty of a legal challenge, has dictated the municipality of Chatham-Kent's approach to homeless encampments. Encampments won't be going away anytime soon. Faced with a huge backlash from residents following an encampment forming on the grounds around the Chatham-Kent Public Utilities Commission in Chatham last month, Municipal Council recently opted to change its encampment protocol to prohibit homeless people setting up tents within 100 meters of a residential property or business. Following the third straight meeting Monday where the encampment protocol has dominated the discussion, Council learned this setback would create legal problems for the municipality. Director of Legal Services Dave Taylor said Council's options for dealing with the difficult social issue of homelessness are seriously constrained by a number of legal cases. Unhoused persons have a charter-protected right to shelter on public lands when accessible and affordable housing options are not available, he added. Taylor said court cases regarding encampments talk about life, liberty, and security of the person, which is in Section 7 of the Charter, close quote. Unless you own the house and someone's trying to rob it,
Yeah.
then apparently it doesn't apply. So everyone has a right to your property, but you.
Mhm.
You don't have a right to defend your property. You don't own it because you pay property tax. And if a criminal wants to come in your house, they can. Let him go. If a homeless person wants to set up a camp on your property, they have to do it. So the only person that doesn't have rights are the responsible, law-abiding citizens that actually desire to be independent and hardworking. They don't have any rights. Everyone else, all the rights.
Yeah, and the charter has really turned out to be a godforsaken document, because the Section 7, that's mentioned here in the article, life, liberty, and the security of the person. That is the same article, I remind you, Andrew, that it was argued that people have the right to euthanasia under. They use the article about the security of the person and their right to life to defend the killing of innocent human beings in our nation. So that's the thing about constitutions. They are only as good as they are treated as higher law in the society that they're put into. And they're only as good as they are authoritative. And in Canada, they're neither, right? Because we've talked extensively on the program about how basically every higher court official holds to the doctrine of the living tree, when it comes to judicial hermeneutics and interpreting texts. They don't believe that the charter is higher law. So what good is the Constitution? It's of no good. It's zero good. It's only a tool for political power to be, and it does, because it really has no authority in itself. It's only those people who are conscientious citizens who want to obey the law who are actually going to enforce it on themselves, right? So you end up in a society where the political elites will twist it as a wax nose for their own purposes. The criminals have no fear of it, and it's not a document that can actually lead to justice flourishing in our society. And the only people who abide by it are the same ones who are victimized by it, and those are the law-abiding citizens. It's a disaster. It's no good, very bad. And that's why, I don't know how you fix Canada, Andrew. I don't know how you fix Canada, because it's not like you could maybe tether yourselves to a historically great charter, unless if you say we're going to get rid of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, go back to what we had under the BNA and the Bill of Rights, and then we can build from there type thing. Which, by the way, if nobody's read the actual Bill of Rights, I would suggest you do it, because for Christians, it's very interesting that the logic of the Bill of Rights is that all rights flow from God, which is the very idea that is undermined by the Charter and by the Human Rights, Convention, or whatever, the UN Human Rights Convention. All these secularists try and root grounds and rights and stuff that is not God, and you can't do it. It just it just fails miserably. And these are sad stories. Listen, these are very, very sad stories. We're talking about vulnerable people being victimized. We're talking about people having to live in fear and violence and among squalor, and it's just indicative of the direction that Canada's headed, down the drain.
Inflation through the roof.
Food costs went up 10.6% in February.
Censorship of dissident voices, freezing of bank accounts.
Justin Trudeau invoking emergency powers against the truckers. Banks can now freeze their personal accounts, the accounts of anyone linked to the Freedom Convoy.
Digital surveillance and communism spreading.
What do we want?
Basic income!
With the basic income, and I felt a sense of security because I didn't have to worry about not going hungry, and I didn't have to worry about being kicked out of my apartment.
The government is on the verge of bankruptcy, and they're coming for your money.
Canada's federal debt increasing in real time, now surpassing $1.2 trillion. This debt is draining taxpayer dollars, with interest alone costing $54 billion this year.
It's time to break free and start saving in money they can't take from you. Since 2013, the folks at Bull Bitcoin have one mission: destroy central banking. Bull Bitcoin is the most trusted Bitcoin company in Canada. They empower you to buy, sell, and pay bills with Bitcoin. They are 100% non-custodial, which means that you always maintain full control over your Bitcoin, allowing you to reclaim your financial sovereignty and secure your wealth for the future. Their customer support will assist you throughout the whole process, helping you get your hands on the hardest money ever created. Escape their financial gulag, click on the link below, and start buying Bitcoin today. I think I have more gray hair in my hair and in my beard since I recorded that video.
Yeah,
which
you
is
look like a young man comparatively.
Not that I mean that man is also like 50 pounds heavier than this man, but man, oh man, gray hair. Whew.
Yeah, there you go. Hey, good on you for losing so much weight. I think I'm going the other way. I'm widening out. So, anyways, so Andrew, we contrast the last story with one concerning the most vulnerable people in Canada, And that's preborn babies. That's children in our society. Again, we live in a country that victimizes the most vulnerable. And apparently, not only do medical professionals in Canada want to murder babies before they are born, but they are even more overt in their eugenics by proposing killing disabled babies. This is from Life News. Doctors in Canada have said euthanasia for newborn babies who are born with disabilities, quote, may be an appropriate treatment. They call it a treatment. That's Orwellian. Oh, goodness. Oh, and they do this as concerns grow about the expansion of Canada's euthanasia and assisted suicide program. Oh, no kidding. Speaking on behalf of... Can we just stop listening to people from Quebec? Seriously, this is horrible. Speaking on behalf of the Quebec College of Physicians to the Special Joint Committee on Medical Assistance in Dying, Dr. Louis Roy, or Louis Roy, I don't know. It's Louis Roy, not Lois Roy. Louis Roy previously recommended that euthanasia be introduced for babies with severe deformations and very grave medical syndromes. Unbelievable. The CMQ added that under these circumstances, the deliberate ending of a child's life constitutes care. Ugh. That's difficult. The proposal comes as Canada's euthanasia and assisted suicide program continues to expand. In 2021, the Canadian Parliament repealed the requirement that the natural death of those applying for assisted suicide be, quote, reasonably foreseeable, which I will remind you was a chief argument in actually introducing euthanasia in the first place. The bill would not have been able to go into law had that part not been allowed. But the moving goalpost, it's part of the point. This took place only 5 years after the original legislation allowing euthanasia and assisted suicide was passed in 2016. In 2024, the legislation was introduced so that euthanasia and assisted suicide would be legal on grounds of mental health alone in March 2027, whilst a parliamentary committee in Canada recommended in 2023 that the euthanasia be made available for children under certain conditions and that it be made more easily available for prisoners. If the CMQ recommendations on euthanasia were for disabilities are accepted, Canada would join the Netherlands, where euthanasia is permitted for babies before the age of 1 if they are thought to be suffering unbearably and with the consent of their parents. Why the age of 1? Like, why? That doesn't make any sense with the logic. The Atlantic noted that the Netherlands was the first country to adopt this barbaric practice, that was me adding that, of euthanasia for babies since, you guessed it, since Nazi Germany did so in 1939. Wow, Andrew. That's all not surprising, shocking, not surprising. Bad company to keep. Unbelievable.
Yeah, Hitler wished he could have murdered as many innocent people as the
out in the
Canadian
daylight.
as the Canadian medical industrial complex does every year.
Yeah,
Hitler's got nothing on us,
and we do with the moral sanction of our medical community in Canada. I mean,
and as we're going to see, even people would say, "Oh yeah, but in Canada, only 100,000 babies are murdered each year before they're born." And we're going to find out, well, if we extrapolate reasonably from that, the amount of preborn babies that are actually murdered before they're even implanted, the numbers significantly higher, like at a very large factor altogether.
So needless to say, we deserve all the judgment that we get in this nation,
Right,
because
absolutely,
this
100%,
is disgusting.
completely. Yeah,
This is disgusting. And, like, I live in a society, in my mind, like, I view a society where someone saying this would meet with the most aghast social, outcomes, right? Like, that people would be like, this person is a Hitler. This person is a Nazi. This person is, that doesn't mean anything anymore. But this person is a vile, unjust human being. But these are the experts in our nation. They're supposedly compassionate. They're caring for your children by murdering them. But Andrew, so answer that question. I put the question. So Netherlands, they allow this bill. Why 1 year? Like that's just temporary. That's temporary, just in the same way that the death has to be imminent, that it has to be imminently foreseeable. Just like that was thrown off
the answer
in 5 years.
The answer, I think the answer is twofold. One, outside of a year, obviously, it gets more and more difficult to murder your baby the longer you have them.
Yeah.
And also, the longer you have them, the more likelihood you might say, you know what, maybe this isn't actually an unbearable suffering for them. But if you think about it, this is why it is so satanic.
Oh, it is.
Because what you're basically saying is, this is gruesome, but before you have a chance to get too attached to your child, and before we find out that maybe your child will be okay after all, we need to murder him or her. That's why.
Yeah.
That's why under a year.
And this is how,
so ghoulish.
And this is how, when you lose the fundamental principles that uphold the dignity of human life from natural conception all the way to natural death, there is no stopgap. There is no logical delimiting principle here, because we're told by those who are pro-abortion all the time that, if they're sentient, like they list off all these things, because abortions should be legal in these things, because they're not breathing, they're still attached to the woman's body. They haven't breathed their first breath. When we're talking about a 1-year-old, I mean, it meets every qualification. Mm-hmm. And yet the logic of the death cult is now, if you're under 1 year of age now, so you can be born but under 1 year of age, and it's still okay to kill you. Mm-hmm. So I mean, that is some gruesome demonic stuff.
It is totally it's total eugenics, and it's this, let's just kill off the weak and the infirm before they have a chance to grow and reproduce.
Yeah.
Like it's all the way back. Like this, it's very disgusting.
Yeah,
and
then they'll pat themselves
irony
in the back like Iceland, we got rid of Down syndrome in Iceland, and by got rid of you meant you just murdered all the kids with Down syndrome.
And the irony of all of this is apparent. Like, I always thought that neurodivergence and disability was something that was to be protected and championed, and had a few intersectionality markers, and yet they're saying, no, we need to remove it altogether.
Well, they're happy.
Crazy,
they're happy to get those people in their cause, but then they'll kill them, just like all revolutions do. Right. They'll end up killing them because who wants to look at somebody with Down syndrome?
Yeah, they use women as pawns. They use black people as pawns. They use indigenous.
Yeah.
Aaron Rock had a really good podcast not that long ago, talking about what racism is biblically understood. Mm-hmm. And he just made the point clearly that the Every Lives Matter campaign has actually nothing to do with Indigenous people or Indigenous children, but everything to do with a Marxist takeover of Canada. So,
100%.
It's so Canada is, I mean, Canada and the world, seem to be under the spell of a death cult. That clearly seems to be the case. And there's a new paper that came out recently suggesting that nothing, get ready for this, has been more deadly for humans than in vitro fertilization, which is something I talked at length about with Russell Hunter and John Speed. And I know this can be a touchy area for people, especially if they've utilized IVF and now they have a child. And every time a child is created and born and comes to life is a beautiful, wonderful thing. And what we're about to say doesn't diminish the value, the uniqueness, or the dignity of that child. It does mean that in order to have that child, probably another 20 children were discarded in the process. That's just the bare reality of it. So this is from LifeSite News. A new academic paper in fertility and sterility estimates that there were around 13 million babies born through assisted reproductive technology between 1978 and 2018. While there are other forms of ART that do not necessarily involve the creation of extra embryos, IVF was used 99% of the time when referring to reproductive technology. The first person was born from IVF in England in 1978. The authors estimated that another 4 million or so babies have been born through IVF between 2018 and 2024. The authors acknowledge that their data is not complete due to spottiness in record keeping across different countries. However, their final number is 13 to 17 million infants born via IVF since 1978. This large number of infants born from both conventional and innovative applications of ART confirms that ART has helped millions of people realize parenthood is now mainstream medicine, has had a significant societal impact, including novel family formation and highlighted inequities regarding so-called reproductive rights and access to care, the researchers claim. While some factions of the pro-life or conservative movement would view this as a positive sign because, they argue, these are people who had children, the truth is much grimmer. This is because a low estimate is that IVF requires the intentional killing of at least 16 human embryonic children for every baby born. Now get ready for this. This means that if, again, this is incomplete data and this is a low estimate, so this is base level here. Out of the 13 to 17 million children that have been born through IVF, an estimated 250 million plus babies have been destroyed through IVF. That is 250 million people worldwide have been snuffed out in the earliest stage of their human development in order to preserve one baby and then have that baby born. And those 13 to 17 million people are unique image bearers of God that are worthy of dignity and value. And it is always a joyful, wonderful thing when new life is created, when a child comes into this world. It's always something to be celebrated. But we need to be real about the fact that the cost of our playing God and usurping natural processes means that in our world, on the low end, we have murdered 250 million people because we have blurred the lines and we have broken the creator-creation distinction. It's a deeply theological issue. That's why this has happened, because we've said we as a Western world have believed the original lie in the garden that we can be like God, that we can do the things that God does, that we have the keys of life and death, and that we have power over creation. And because of our hubris, and we've done that, we have murdered 250 million people, which for anyone who's any student of history, that is more than the greatest genocide in history by a factor of about 6. If you're looking at what Stalin did in Russia. So Stalin killed about 40 million of his own people before World War II. This is greater than that by a factor of more than 6. This is the single greatest genocide, more than abortion. And this is why I remember John and I talking about this. IVF doesn't get a lot of airtime because people are really touchy because I know people who've had babies through IVF, but at the end of the day, IVF has killed exponentially more babies than your standard preborn baby murder has in the last 40 years.
Yeah. Christ have mercy on us. This is, you can't fathom, you can't wrap your head around 250 million people at once. Right? I think that the best that the human brain can do is count to 5 kind of and comprehend groups of 5 at one time, really easily.
That's 6 times. That's 7 times the population of Canada.
Yeah.
Just our entire national population presently times 7.
Yeah.
That's how many.
Yeah. It's astonishing. It's hard to wrap your head around. It's really, really hard to wrap your head around. Shocking stuff. But this is what a world where you mix up the creator-creation distinctions, where you abandon the God who created all things. This is that world. We're living in that world, and man, do we need bold Christians who are ready to stand up and speak out against just the sheer barbarity of it all.
Canadian values are family values. This nation was forged largely by strong, hardworking, faith-filled families. When you buy from Resistance Coffee, you're not buying from a giant corporation. You're purchasing from a family-run small business with the Canadian values that built this nation. Our goal with Resistance Coffee is to build something bigger than us, to leave a legacy with the next generation and the next one after that. So join us as we fuel the families who do the work to build this nation.
I can't highlight the contrast between the stories we just covered and the values that are being promulgated by Resistance Coffee and us here on the program. It's quite the juxtaposition. But Andrew, it has become very, very clear to anyone with a brain that our elected officials, in large part, cannot be trusted. Absolutely and totally untrustworthy. They have lied to us. They continue to operate against our best interests, and they only care about their own power and wealth. They even try and cover up their own evil with big whoopsies. And this comes to us from the CTV News. The federal government says it's, quote, looking into what appears to be the accidental removal of a privacy provision in its online streaming act. Earlier this week, University of Ottawa law professor Michael Geist, who does good work on this stuff, outlined in a blog post that a privacy provision in the legislation was removed only 2 months after the bill became law, through an amendment contained in another bill. The Heritage Department said it is now aware of the issue. Quote, we have recently been made aware of what appears to be an inadvertent oversight in an coordinating amendment and are looking into it, a spokesperson said in a statement. Geist said that the statement, quote, appears to confirm that this was a mistake on the government's part. Quote, given the importance of privacy, yep, it is the type of mistake that just, can't happen. And which totally needs to be fixed as soon as possible. He said this in an email. The Online Stream Act updated Canada's Broadcasting Act to capture online streamers like Netflix. While it was making its way through the legislative process, Senator Julie Miville Deschênes introduced an amendment based on the recommendation of the Federal Privacy Commissioner, which then became part of the legislation. It stated the Online Streaming Act would be construed and applied in a manner consistent with individual rights to privacy. Miville Deschênes said she was upset by the mistake. Quote, and I'm a bit surprised because I thought there were many levels of verification, but, mistakes happen. I think now the question is that it has to be corrected quickly. 2 months after the Online Streaming Act became law in April 2023, the government passed an official languages bill. A section of that bill amended the streaming legislation to change language in a provision dealing with official language minority communities. But instead of replacing a similar provision, the official languages bill replaced the privacy provision instead. That means the streaming bill.
Oopsie. Oh my goodness! This is like what the federal government should say is, "Oh, we're so upset that you found out about this."
Yeah,
that's what they should be saying.
Seriously,
pay no attention to that man. But anyways, keep going. I just thought it's just they're just like, "Oh no, we made a mistake. Oh, we're so sad about it. Wow. Why did you make them find out? How did they find out? Oh, we're so sorry. You should have done a better job hiding it." Oh
man, this is a level of incompetence that it's like, this is criminal. Anyways, I don't even know where I left off. Replacing similar provision, the official language bill replaced the privacy provision instead. That means the streaming bill now has two similarly worded provisions around linguistic communities and none dealing with privacy.
That's about right.
Oi. These are our elites, Andrew. These are our betters that must rule over us. The Heritage spokesperson said public and private sector privacy laws still apply to the CRTC and broadcasters. Quote, those regimes apply regardless of the interpretive provisions in the Broadcasting Act, the spokesperson said. But Miville Deschênes pushed back against the argument. Quote, if the privacy commissioner said in his testimony that the privacy question should be reinforced, it's because he was not convinced that the general privacy law would be enough, she said. Geist said that although privacy laws still apply to the CRTC and broadcasters, quote, the point of the now deleted clause was to ensure that the Broadcasting Act was interpreted in a manner consistent with the Canadian privacy law. That is not the same thing. So that was kind of a hermeneutical grid that they were placing upon it that ensured that this, act would basically refer to other laws establishing the privacy so that they couldn't be used against each other, and that these privacies would be protected. But rightfully said by Geist, now that that's not in there, that's not at all assured.
Yeah, I don't believe the state.
Why, Andrew?
Well, okay. I don't believe them, just like I didn't believe them all the way at the beginning with all things COVID. Okay, like I didn't believe them on March 14th, 2020. I didn't believe them on March 27th. I didn't believe them on April 2nd, and I still don't believe them about anything they've ever said with regard to COVID, really. And my doubts have actually only been justified with every passing day, with new study after new study, after new finding, after new evidence, after new research continues to come out and prove we were right. Now, this next little bit here comes from a Substack article from Nicholas Hulsher. Okay, quote, two major, and this is why I didn't believe them about anything COVID, and I certainly don't believe them about, oopsie, we made a mistake. Sorry, we didn't mean, we should have, I guess we should care about your privacy, okay? Two major peer-reviewed papers were published in the last 48 hours, one from Japan and another from an international team of physicians and researchers, including those from the McCullough Foundation. These build directly on our foundational peer-reviewed paper published earlier this year, which comprehensively established the case for terminating mRNA injection programs. Together, these three studies converge on the same conclusion. The modified COVID-19 mRNA injections are unsafe, ineffective, contaminated, and in violation of international law. This is now the strongest scientific and ethical case yet for immediate global withdrawal of mRNA LNP protocols. These were key findings of these two papers. Again, one from Japan and one from international researchers. Key findings. SARS-CoV-2 and mRNA injections display signatures of laboratory manipulation. NATO scientists rated SARS-CoV-2 the fourth most attractive bioweapon candidate out of 34 agents. Both the virus and the mRNA injections represent violations of the Biological Weapons Convention. Here's some of the documented harms, just in case you haven't been following our show for any length of time. Cardiovascular. There's a 510% myocarditis risk out of a cohort of 99 million. A 286% plus heart attacks, plus 240% strokes, plus 199% arrhythmias. That's an 85 million cohort. Autopsies. Okay, so this is 325 cases. Autopsies found. A high likelihood of direct causal link between vaccination and death. Life expectancy loss. 2 dose recipients lost 37% of expected lifespan in follow-up studies. We covered that recently. Reproductive. Pfizer's 2021 report showed 81% miscarriage rate in early pregnancies. NEJM reanalysis confirmed 82% loss rate, comparable to abortion drugs. Okay, so the mRNA injections killed as many preborn babies. It's comparable to what abortion, the morning after pill. The morning after pill does as much damage as these injections do. Stillbirths and neonatal deaths were several-fold higher than baseline. Immune collapse, okay, another category. More than 90% of vaccine-injured retirees showed latent virus reactivation. About 75% had autoimmune markers. Cancer, next heading. A surge in aggressive tumors, digestive, brain, breast, linked to IgG4 tolerance, p53 disruption, DNA contamination, and mistranslation from modified nucleosides. And this is the last heading here is military readiness. Defense Medical Epidemiology Database showed plus 153% myocarditis in 2023, plus 46% digestive cancers, plus 262% obesity, plus 867% slip, trip, fall injuries, plus 85% suicidal, homicidal ideation. Now, this is the conclusion from the paper, okay? The COVID-19 pandemic response violated core principles of public health, medical freedom, and bodily autonomy, amplifying the devastating effects of SARS-CoV-2 and its modified mRNA biologics vaccines. The overwhelming evidence of SARS-CoV-2's gain-of-function origins, coupled with the catastrophic health impacts of modified mRNA COVID-19 biologics or vaccines, and the unchecked expansion of next-generation mRNA biologics, paints a chilling picture of deliberate design and systemic harm. Engineered viral features and vaccines that devastate immunological, cardiovascular, reproductive, and neurological systems have driven staggering morbidity and mortality with effects unlikely to be accidental. Coordinated efforts to obscure these truths, enabled by liability shields and legislative failures, have worsened a global health disaster. The surge in autoimmune diseases, aggressive cancers, pregnancy losses, cardiovascular fatalities, societal fragmentation, and the looming risks of advanced mRNA platforms demand an immediate halt to the mRNA vaccine and biologic use, comprehensive investigations into the motives behind this unprecedented violation of public trust, and robust measures to restore safe therapeutics and ethical public health practices. Humanity deserves accountability, transparency, and a resolute commitment to preventing such engineered calamities in the future. Close quote. We told you so.
Carnage, Andrew. Like this is. I don't know. There's nothing else to say. Secularism is a death cult.
Even the fact, like just that one statistic that the experimental COVID gene therapy injections ended a comparable number of pregnancies to the morning after pill.
Yeah. It's almost as if they designed it for that purpose. Although it did a lot more, as you can see, because it's almost as if you were like sending into your through the mRNA injection, your body was producing a cytotoxic virus that was just like destroying your body and your immune system.
We covered a study not that long ago that found that if you've had a booster or two, that one of the dangers of this technology is that it creates the spike protein not only in perpetuity but in increasing measure. And so I would encourage you, if you're listening to this, if you're watching this, click the link. We have the link to the article from Nicholas Hulscher. But there are graphs and charts, and there's a lot of information and all the data I just read. It could have gone over your head, but read through it, slowly read through those numbers.
If you were trying to create a subtle bioweapon, one that would be able to kill many people or harm many people without being so obvious that like nobody would take it, you couldn't really do better than what they did with these mRNAs. NATO scientists rated it the most attractive bioweapon candidate out of 34 agents, and the mRNA injection represent violations of the Biological Weapons Convention. All in the name of safety and prosperity. We kill ourselves and kill our loved ones, both big and small. Andrew, may God have mercy on us as a people.
Yeah, that is the only.
I mean, that's all I have to say.
It's the only way. It's the only way out of it. There's no there. I mean, all of this layering upon itself over and over again, like just this stacking of all of this evidence, all of these clear indictments against our own nation. The only way out of this is some sort of dramatic
is to change the national anthem of Canada to Kyrie eleison. That's the only possible way out of this.
And I think the reason why I labor the point that people need to do everything in their power to properly train up and prepare and equip their children and grandchildren is because I don't think the way out of this is avoiding the kind of utter collapse and destruction that's coming for Canada. I don't think there's a way around it. And so by adequately preparing our children and grandchildren and handing off a strong church, they will be able to rebuild when the collapse is full and final.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know if at this point, and I've felt this way for a while, I think that we've crossed that point of no return where I'm sure some of you have seen this at splash pads, where splash pads will have like, it's almost like a cup that's on a swivel, and there's a little
bucket,
spout that pours water in.
Yeah.
And then as it fills, the thing starts to swing more. And then eventually it swings so much, and all the kids stand under the huge amount of water that pours out, and they're like, they're all freaking out. I think that Canada is at the point where there's no stopping the bucket pouring over.
Yeah.
I don't think
wrath.
I don't think there's any way out of it at this point. I don't, and that's not to doubt the goodness of God and the grace of God and the mercy of God. Of course not. Absolutely not. That's just me looking at history and seeing, both in the scriptures and in human history, God seems to have communicated to us the reality that there are points at which he says enough is enough. And it's not that he can't be merciful. It's for the sake of his glory, for the sake of justice, and because he will not be mocked. There's points where he has to deal with it, where the consequences cannot be avoided. I think we're there, but again, I'm not.
When we consider the numbers, man, when we consider the numbers, when we consider the barbarity of the laws that we're supposed to be passing, and we hold that in front of the prescriptive assignment given to the state in Romans 13, understanding that it should be a servant, a deacon of Christ. I mean, you just know that the good God of heaven and earth, who's a just judge and holy, he will do what's right. And that's not a good thing for those who are in iniquity to this degree. And that's why we need to be penitential, because frankly, we've talked about this, Andrew, this is a bitter pill to swallow. The church has let this happen, right? We preach sermons about, disparaging Christian culture and morality. We preach sermons about how the true gospel is a gospel that has very little to do with this world. We think personal piety is the extent of the gospel. We don't believe that the implications of God's new world order instantiated by Christ have anything to do with the gospel, that somehow we've turned Christianity into a mystery cult religion that's only about personal salvation, so you can float off into the heavenly someday and play a harp on a cloud. Like, these are the sort of asinine things that Christians have done. And, Dr. Boot has said it very well, our friend, that the ghettoization, the ecclesiasticization, the church becoming insular, collapsing in on itself, however you want to say it, by the church retreating from culture, it necessarily called forward this demonic display. And we know that when a house is cleaned from an evil spirit, and then that spirit goes out and it comes back and nothing is in its place, that it brings 7 spirits worse than it. And I can't help but think that the Western world, by God's grace and mercy, had been spared all sorts of evil throughout history, experienced the blessings of God, but through our apostasy, we've emptied out the house, and now we're being filled up by demonic spirits that are ghastly, that are ghouly. You think about the trans shooting, you think about all this stuff that's going on. It's hard to fathom.
Yep.
Yet the church has triumphed in history over this type of evil regime, over death cults like this, and we'll do it again by the grace of God through faithful.
And I'm not hopeless, because there's work to be done, right? In Isaiah 6, when God says he's gonna burn the land down, and then he's gonna burn it again, because ultimately what he's after is that holy stump, that holy seed, that remnant, and then the rebuilding. That's why I'm not hopeless, because if God will indeed bring a kind of cleansing, purifying fire to our land, which will have a very destructive nature about it, even though that's the case, we know that ultimately God will preserve a people for himself. And then once the land has been cleared and once the devastation is complete, then our children and grandchildren can get to the work of rebuilding and reestablishing a Christian nation and culture once again. And for that, I'm hopeful.
Yeah, me too, man. Well, unfortunately, not ending on the most... I mean, that's hopeful. You gave us a hopeful word, but it's been a heavy program. But we want to leave on that hopeful word that even in the midst of all this brokenness, I just think of Jeremiah, right? Just how God pleads with people to come to him. How he's such a loving father that despite all our sinfulness and all our ugliness, that his righteous right hand is reached out to us. He is not grow weary or faint, but he's still gracious even to vile sinners. And that's the great hope that we have. So the call is turn to Christ, for in him you have true freedom and liberty. For freedom, Christ has set you free. Do not submit again to your yoke of slavery. Until next time, everybody, God bless you.
Liberty Dispatch has been brought to you by SDG Media. If you want to stay in touch with us and all things Liberty Dispatch, join our email list, or support the show, head over to ldcanada.substack.com.